Taliban gained victory through brutal determination. This display, led by those who'd been prepared to mount suicide operations, also featured IEDs and suicide vests. Ranged against them were elite counter-terrorist forces, both the army commandos mentored by UK Special Forces and the intelligence specialists who provided the critical information needed to stop countless attacks. Astoundingly, we've learned, many of these people have been left behind and the Taliban are hunting them.
There's no doubt that they will be hunted down, they will be interrogated and questioned extensively to start with, to identify the intelligence which they have, which will be of use to the Taliban. And then in all likelihood, the highest probability that they will be executed.
Over the years, dozens of Afghan government employees were attached to MI6 in order to gather or share sensitive intelligence with the UK. We've been in touch with some of them, including one who we'll call Ahmed. He applied for ARAP, the Afghan resettlement programme, in May.
Until now, they've not replied yet about our eligibility. I'm left behind to the Taliban to be executed. At least if they would have told me on time, I would have flown to a third country.
So how on earth has someone who did such sensitive work been waiting since May for an answer? 2 weeks ago, Ahmed received an email from the UK support team, the liaison section he was dealing with at the Ministry of Defence, saying they could do no more.
The team here has pushed your case as hard as we can through our channels. I realise this is the information nobody wants to hear, but it is now out of our hands.
Ahmed was shocked by this news. He'd worked with British intelligence, SIS, for more than 8 years, and that included training courses in the UK. He also had a security pass for the British Embassy in Kabul.
I'm really sorry when I see my children. I've ruined their lives. Once, I was told by the SIS team, while I was in London, the UK is your second home.
So far, the SIS contacts he's emailed have not replied. On the 30th of August, Ahmed received another MOD email putting the onus on him to get out.
Rest assured, you will not be forgotten. We will fly those eligible from third countries if you're able to get out safely.
But is Ahmed eligible? On Tuesday, an email arrived from the Ministry of Defence.
I cannot advise you on your ARAP status. If you are confirmed as eligible, the relevant team will be in touch.
So 3.5 months after he first applied, at a time when he easily could have left the country, Ahmed still doesn't know whether he's eligible for resettlement in the UK. What's more, Newsnight has discovered that there are many others who were involved in the most sensitive areas of counter-terrorist cooperation who've also been left behind. We've been in touch with another member of Ahmed's team. He's made it to a European country, but has still not established whether he can come to the UK. He can't see any logic to who's been given resettlement and those who've been left to the mercy of the Taliban.
It's so frustrating. We can't open our mouths. It's all secret. They moved some of our friends, but they left some of them there. And their situation is really critical. And some of the other people they flew out was so unimportant.
This story is much bigger than Ahmed and a couple of his colleagues. We've learnt that some former Afghan Army Special Operations commandos were sent back onto the streets of Kabul last week by British forces at the airport. Key elements of what was called the counter-terrorist kill chain have been left behind.
And all these people who've been in the pipeline who applied on the 1st of April or mid-April or like Ahmed in early May should have been evacuated before the fall of Kabul, should certainly have been evacuated as a priority after the fall of Kabul. But for some reason, the system has failed them. They don't even know whether it is safe for them to go to a third country. Until they know they're going to be relocated, there's no point in breaking cover.
Many have wondered whether the machines left behind at Kabul might ever fly again. But the bigger question concerns the people and the skills they learned as the West's partners in counter-terrorism. The Taliban will do everything they can now to learn those techniques in order to turn them against their enemies at home and abroad.
And Mark is with me now. Mark, why are these people still there?
Well, look, we've had a statement from the Foreign Office just shortly before coming on air. The government is committed to supporting those especially vulnerable Afghans who are eligible to come to the UK. The situation is complex with significant challenges, including safe passage from Afghanistan. And they go on to explain, we've worked around the clock to airlift over 15,000 people out of Afghanistan, the biggest airlift from a single country in a generation. There clearly were complexities by the time you got to the gates that were bombed there. Obviously, there was a hierarchy of need, if you like. British passport holders, some people involved in sensitive operations even more recently, or in even more intimate cooperation, for example. We know that Ahmed and the others we were talking to were in an element that stood down or stopped cooperating with the British in 2019, for example. And some people have told us, well, the ones still actively involved with us had a priority. So there are all these reasons given. But the really big question, looking at this over the past 10 days or so, is why on earth, if several of these people, or many of them we believe, applied well before things got so serious in Kabul in mid-August, were they not being given a proper response in May, June, July, when they could have left anyway?
But was this a problem between the MOD and the Foreign Office?
Lots of stakeholders in this, no doubt about that. That the unit sending those emails, we know, was in the MOD, but obviously MI6, they were the people working closely with this team. They were involved. The Foreign Office, the Home Office, which rules on immigration matters, not much of a joined-up process as far as one could tell, because some members of this team were evacuated, some weren't. They can't figure it out.
And also, this was meant to be a very big day for the Taliban, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. It was going to be a huge ceremonial day in Kandahar. Lots of rumours that the cloak of Muhammad, a very revered relic, would be brought out to bless the new spiritual leader of the Taliban. That didn't happen. And they didn't unveil a new government either, which was another thing many people expected to happen, perhaps due to pressure from the European Union and other outsiders about the representative nature of that government needing to be seen. The other thing they were hoping for today was to conquer the Panjshir Valley, last bastion of resistance. They don't seem to have achieved that.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. Well, joining now is the Labour Mayor of South Yorkshire and former Army officer Dan Jarvis, who served twice in Afghanistan. Thanks very much for joining us, Dan Jarvis. What do you make of this? The man we're calling Ahmed worked for British intelligence for 8 years.
Yeah. Well, this looks and feels like a shameful abandonment. These are people who are uniquely at risk because of the nature of the work that they've been engaged in. That's work that we asked them to do. And of course, they will be absolutely right at the top of any Taliban target list for reprisals. So I think we do have a moral obligation to these people, and every lever across the British government should be pulled to try and get them to safety. It beggars belief that they weren't prioritised. And I think it raises very big questions for the Foreign Office and for the government more widely as to what's happened in these particular cases.
In your view, what's the best chance for people like the man we're calling Ahmed? What is the best chance? Is it to get, as this latest email said, get yourself to a third country, as if this was going to be an easy ask?
It's impossible to know tonight. People find themselves with a desperate choice to have to make. Do they lie low and stay put and hope things that will improve? Or do they try and get to a neighbouring country? These are incredibly difficult decisions that people are being forced to make. That's why it's important that we pull every lever and exert all influence we possibly can with the new regime to try and get them to honour the commitments that they've made. But already we know that people are being executed. So that feels a pretty difficult task to me right now.
Well, you were there for 2 tours. Could the British military have operated without these men in Afghanistan?
No, these are people who provided outstanding service to us at great risk to themselves. And that's why I think we owe them not only a debt of gratitude, but actually we are obligated, given the commitments that we've made, to get them to a place of safety. And it's obviously particularly worrying that some of these people applied under the Arab scheme a number of months ago. So these aren't people who've just emerged in the last few days or weeks. These are people who put forward applications in some cases a number of months ago. So big questions, I think, about the application process, about how joined up or not this has been across government. But the immediate priority has to be to try and find a way to get them to safety. I think that is what we owe them, and I think that's what we should work to try and achieve.
Well, if you were handling this now, what would you do?
Well, I would be seeking to work with international partners to exert the maximum amount of diplomatic influence on the new regime to try and get them to respect the rule of law and human rights and honour the commitments that they have previously made. Now, that's going to be very difficult to do, but we've got to do our best, do everything that we possibly can, given the grave situation that so many people who've worked alongside us now face. It's a good thing that a number of people have been brought to safety due to the Herculean efforts of our armed forces who've done an outstanding job. But we need to see political leadership over the coming hours, days and weeks to galvanise the international community and give these people a fighting chance of getting to safety.
And finally, as Mark was saying, I think, and you were saying too, is the impossibility of all this different churn. You know, it was MI6, it was MOD, it was the Foreign Office. There'll be many inquiries into Afghanistan, but should there be an inquiry into a kind of failure of communication with such devastating consequences?
I'm sure there will have to be. Look, I don't doubt that at an individual level, there are people doing amazing work in government departments, but there are big questions about the extent to which that's been properly coordinated. I know countless MPs who've struggled to get responses to emails that they've sent. So I think there are big questions about the conduct of recent events, but the priority has to be to focus on doing everything that we possibly can to support those people and try and get them to safety.
Dan Jarvis, thank you very much for joining us.